bush. You can't go blueberry picking with your ATV or your motorbike. You can't go fishing. You can't go skidooing. And I don't know what else you do in Dubroyville other than those things if you want to have enjoyment. But what's worst is when Andrew Horvath and Mike and I went in and met with the municipal council a couple of weeks ago around the forestry issue and also about this issue, they said, imagine how frustrated we feel in Dubroyville when we hear the planes flying overhead and bypassing our community when it comes to the economic activity of remote tourism. The remote tourist operators don't come to Dubroyville to buy an ounce of gas, they don't buy any groceries, they don't use local people for anything. They basically pack everything from outside, bring it in, they sneak them in by the back way, and then when they're leaving they come through Dubroyville. So every time a vehicle comes back out of Dubroyville and back goes through the community, it's another group of remote tourists, I guess, who have had the experience of being able, yes, to get on an ATV, yes, to get on a skidoo, yes, to be able to get in by any way means necessary to be able to get to those lakes that local individuals aren't able to do. Imagine how frustrated you feel. So I say that has to change, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. In my own constituency, I'll give you a really strange one that happened. Who knows where Rufus Lake is? I got some Rufus Lake guys, they know. So on Rufus Lake, for what, 2 generations, maybe 3, there have been people that have got camps on it. And they've been basically going there in the summer to fish and do what we all do in the summer when it comes to the outdoors and go out there in the winter with their skidoos. And there's this road, I wouldn't call it a road, it's a trail. There was a trail to access Rufus Lake that was pretty hard to do with an ATV, and it gets worse and worse as the years go on because there's no maintenance, and it's now a point where at that point it was taking a couple of hours for people to get in on the ATV. So the local anglers and hunters who live on that lake said, listen, we need to basically fix up this trail. So they went to the M&R to get a permit to fix up the trail so that they can get in there with their ATVs. One outfitter on the lake almost held it all up. Said, no, this is a remote lake. Tell me, for God's name, how a remote lake can be created when you got camps on it, where people in town in Kapuskasing and Opasetica have had cottages on that lake for the last 2 and 3 generations. That is not a remote lake. So I went and met with Bill Greenaway, who was the M&R guy. We had a meeting, and then I brought him to a public meeting in Kapuskasing and made the point, if you can prove to me this is a remote lake, prove it to me. There's like, how many cottages on this lake? We're talking people that have got physical cottages on the lake. You can't call that a remote access. And finally the M&R said, yeah, you're right. We're going to have to side with the cottagers, so we got a permit in order to be able to fix up the road. But that's just one example. If you're able to have an argument as an outfitter to shut down a lake where people have cottages, imagine the kind of success they're going to be getting on lakes where there's no cottages or camps. So it seems to me there's something really, really wrong. And what we need to do is that we need to change the policy so that we're able to protect this thing that we call the way of life in Northern Ontario. You know, Gugama Joe and others talked about it. Why do we live in Northern Ontario? You know, we could be living in Toronto, there are jobs there for us. We could be living in Hamilton or Ottawa. Many of us, our kids are there and our grandkids are there. Why are we here? Tell me. Why do we live in Northern Ontario? Because we love the outdoors. We love going to our cottages in the summer. We love to go fishing. We love to go blueberry picking. We love to go hunting. We love to enjoy the outdoors. Here, who here is not an environmentalist? We're all environmentalists. We still have an environment that we can work in, that we can play in, that we can enjoy. And I don't know about you, but I get really frustrated because I had somebody come in my office in Toronto on Friday on this very issue about going to this meeting. Environmentalist groups in Southern Ontario heard that I was coming, and they were coming to warn me how bad that was for me to go. And I said to them, I said, listen, you know, you guys have chopped all your trees down. You've bulldozed all of your land. You don't have a local environment, so I understand why you're upset. But where I come from, you go 5 minutes out of town, it's the wilderness, and you don't hit another town for another 100 miles or 200 miles to 300 miles, depending where you live. And nobody in Northern Ontario wants to put a lake at risk. Nobody in Northern Ontario wants to put a forest at risk. Nobody wants the environment harmed in Northern Ontario. Why? Because we make our living from the environment and mining and forestry and hydroelectric projects. We want to make sure that those projects are done in a way that's sustainable, that we ensure that there's always those activities there and the outdoors is protected. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to fish those lakes. We want to be able to camp at those lakes, be able to pick the blueberries. And we've been doing it successfully for a lot of years. So when you hear a representative like me, I said to them in Northern Ontario saying, we need to keep traditional access for local citizens, that's what we're talking about, because we still have that to be able to enjoy. So what do we want to do? It's pretty simple. You know, I've been asking the questions because it's called question period, it's not called answer period. And of course, Linda Jeffries deflects the shots every time that we come across. So, you know, how do we change this? Quite frankly, it's a change of government. You know, at the end of the day, we got to send Linda with her walking papers. You know, she's got to go for a walk across the aisle, and she's got to get out of government in order to make sure that we have people in government that are actually going to fix this. What I'm committing to you today is this. I'm the chair of the Ontario campaign. The New Democrats, we have a process like every other party where you have people that are responsible for particular running of the elections. I'm one of the 3 co-chairs. We are going to be releasing the rest of the Northern platform a little bit later on within the next couple of weeks. And I'm telling you, this will be part of the platform. We need to maintain traditional access. And that means if there's a road, or if there's a lake that you've been accessing, and it's a lake that people have traditionally accessed in your community, those lakes should not be closed down in favor of making them into remote tourism lakes. If an outfitter wants to make a living, and that is not a problem, we understand that, they need to make a living, and they want a remote access lake, go and find one. There are all kinds of lakes that are in Northern Ontario. I know I have a plane, I fly over them, where basically there are no roads. So if you can find a lake that doesn't have a road on it, all you need to do is go set up camp over there, and if I've got a plane and I want to come in behind you, I have the right to do so. It's also my lake. But at the end of the day, don't try to pretend that you're going to create remote access by felling trees across a place called Oswald Lake as a way of making an artificial remote lake. If later on a road comes into that lake, you know, last time I checked, those are Crown dollars being spent. It's the people of Ontario that gives money to the forest companies to build roads. There's a thing called the Forest Management Plan. Let's talk about how we're able to manage that so we don't negatively affect the person who's been established there before us. But I don't believe just because they've set themselves as remote access, it remains remote access forever. It means to say there's no road, the only way in is by plane. If you want to go with the plane, go and do what you got to do. But if later the M&R gives money, or the Crown I should say, gives money to a forest company to put a road into thereafter, it's at this peril of the investment. It's just the way that it is. And yeah, maybe we have to have some way of making sure that we don't overfish the lake and all that stuff, but we can work that through the forest management process. So what we're saying is, in the end, what we need to do is to make sure that individuals living in Northern Ontario, or wherever they may come from, continue to have traditional access to those places that we've always had access before, and that's essentially what we're going to basically commit to. Let me talk about Oswald Lake. I'm not going. And I'm going to tell you why I'm not going, for 2 reasons. One, I've got to be at the truck pull in Smooth Rock Falls at about 2 o'clock. There's a big event there every year, and if you haven't noticed, there's an election, and I've got a bunch of constituents up there I got to go see. But the other one is, there's nothing better that the M&R and the Liberal Party would like is to have me get arrested, because they would throw me in jail. And they would say, you can campaign from behind the bars of Monteith. And I'm not about to campaign behind the bars of Monteith, because at the end of the day, that would not be a very successful election for myself and for the party. I think it was properly explained, and I appreciate it. Is it Linda? Bonnie? You know, there was 2, yeah, I'm terrible with names as a politician, I have to say that. You know, there is a bit of a diverging view. And I think that it was good that you put it out there, because at the end of the day, the M&R does have authority to charge you. And you need to know when you do that, you're taking your own risks in your own hands. Now, I understand why, I guess what I want to say is, I find it really sad that we're pushed to the point that people are actually prepared to go to jail. It tells you the level of frustration that people are feeling across this northern part of the province. That people are saying, listen, I fully understand, as Mr. Magnuson has said, and Gogema Joe and others, I know what the consequences are, and I'm better prepared to pay for them. And I just think that's sad that people are pushed to that point in order to do what they think is right. And my hat's off to you, because it takes a lot of courage to do what you're about to do, because like me, I don't have the courage to do it because I want to campaign knocking at doors, not knocking at the bars of my jail. So my hat's off to you, but I want you to know, and I think it has to be said, the M&R will be there, they will enforce the law. The only other thing I would say is, and it's been said already, but I think it needs to be said, there's a lot of people at the M&R that don't like this. Let's be very clear, they're not all around me in there. I've had lots of M&R people that have called me as a result of questions I've done in the House, who have come to talk to me privately because they are worried about what their bosses are going to say. and they're outdoorsmen just like us. And they don't want to be in the position of having to put, whoever it is in jail. They'd rather not be there. But they have a job to do. And they're going to do what they've got to do as told by their bosses. So my only advice to you is, if you're going to make a decision to do what's called civil disobedience, a guy by the name of Martin Luther King and others have done it before, and I'm not putting you up on that pedestal. No way, Lou, am I putting you up on that pedestal. He was a league ahead of all of us. Understand you do that with consequences, but I say, do not fight, do not swear, do not argue. Just do what you're told by the law. Follow the law. If you're going to be charged, you got to do what you got to do. But I really got to say, don't make this an incident, because what the MNR, maybe not the MNR, what the government would really like is to have a Donnybrook out at Oswald Lake, where the pictures coming back from the Daily Press and others is about people sort of fighting and swearing and being unruly. You lose the fight at that point. So I think you got to make your point. You have to make your own decisions. I personally wouldn't make that decision because I think you need to follow the law, but I respect those that are going to do what they're doing. And my hat's off to you. And I just say with that, you know that you can count on myself, you can count on France, Mike, Andrew, Horvath, and others in order to change the law for what it needs to be, and that is access to these crown lands, our crown lands. I think what Mike has said is perfectly right. This is privatization of crown lands, and I, for one, don't stand for the privatization of our crown lands. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Joe. Very well stated, no doubt. We may have slightly a little difference when he says to the fact that, if you want remote only, then you have to go to hell and back to get it. We still say, and we're not demanding on OntORA that a road be built to a lake, right to the shore of the lake. That's not what we're demanding. We're saying that if there's a road that goes, like the timber company has prescriptions, they cannot cut to the shore of the lake. We don't want them to cut to the shore of the lake, and we don't want to put our 14-foot boat or 18-foot boat on that lake, but we want to work to get in that lake, and we want to go there the hard way. We're going to share with Remote that's there. And we want Remote to say to the guys out there, their clients, look, those pork and beaters, they're going to be staying in a tent tonight. You guys have flown in, nice ride, you're being flown out, you paid for it, and so we are not taken away from them. We're also saying, one second, Ingrid, I'll acknowledge you, okay? We're also saying to Remote, just remember that it's like, if you've got something to sell, keep selling it and it'll be sold. And I just wrote myself a little note based on what the gentleman was saying also about, there's a guy from Ivanhoe, the lake, he wrote us, he wants to remain, what's the word? Anonymous. He doesn't want anybody to know. He wrote down, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. So picture who he was writing. And he gave it away. He said that his son is a environmentalist lawyer. Okay, so you all know who it is. But picture this. He puts his clients to fish on Ivanhoe Lake, which is an open lake for anybody. He puts his clients there. Meanwhile, he takes the others and he flies them in, but he doesn't want the public to go there. The public can't go there. But he wants them to share the lake that they have, and the planes leave early in the morning. I thought that was a good one to point out, whatever. Now, I see where, two other things before I let Ingrid say a word. I'm holding up poor Ingrid real bad here. Okay, it has to do with conservation. Remember, you're going to hear the term, look, we're doing it for conservation. I want you to know that if it's conservation, applicable to everybody. Conservation for the fly-in is the same as it is for you, Public Joe. We're not knocking conservation. We're saying if you allow him in there, you allow us in there. Conservation. Liability, I want you to know that the Public Lands Act, Article 50, stipulates that the MNR is not responsible for any bridges, culverts, or beaver dams that let go and wash the highway